What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Down Once More. Matt here, coming at you with another mini episode this week. Our scheduling for the month got a little bit thrown off due to some hurricanes and some other stuff going on. So Rayleigh and I's reviews of Across the Universe and Rocky Horror Picture Show have been slightly delayed from plans. We've had some good musical content for you this month so far. Reviewed the Back to the Future National Tour, Dear Evan Hansen National Tour going on Broadway. And then this week, I'm going to change it to a little bit more music as a whole. Went to a concert this past week and just want to talk a little bit about live music, live theater, the feelings of that. Kind of, for some of you who have listened to the pod for a while, you might have heard some of the talks of this on why music and I think musical theater is so important and resonates so closely with me. Connected Rayleigh and I and Brad and I when we've done these episodes, and just kind of the importance of that. So I'm going to get into that in a little bit. So a little bit different than our normal content here on the podcast. Before we do that, I just want to say I did officially finish season 2 of Rings of Power. I think overall, this kind of adaptation of a lot of loose appendices, Tolkien's earlier work, it is very loose. It is expanding on a lot of lore that didn't exist. I'm not going to get too in the weeds with it because I was not like an avid Tolkien reader of all the appendices, Silmarillion, all that fun stuff. I did think that overall I enjoyed season 2 more than season 1. Part of that could have been because of my hate for the Harfoot storyline, the pre-Hobbits in season 1, and how prevalent they were and how big of a part they were. They played a lot smaller role in the second season, and so I liked that. I also started the season further behind and watched it in a couple chunks, kind of binging it. I think that helped some too. I think watching season 1 week to week and then waiting after ending on a really high moment with one group of people one week, and then next week the episode comes on and it's focused almost entirely on the fucking Harfoots, pissed me off. And so I think that kind of soured me a little bit on season 1. I have not gone back and rewatched season 1. I might have different thoughts and feelings on it at this time if I go back there. But season 2 I thought was really good. I think the place it leaves us in the setting and setup for season 3 is really exciting. So I'm excited to see where that goes. It's a show where the visuals are absolutely stunning. It is absolutely a beautifully shot show. I like the practical effects that they use in it as well. As the insane budget does show the production value does matter in it, I think. And so I like that they kind of have a lot of, there's a few more larger name actors in season 2. Nothing major though, but I like that they have relatively smaller scales, no like big names, faces in it that are distracting from the story and the plot. Because I think with a lot of these kind of like movie stars they have these days, when they pop up in a movie, you don't see the character they're portraying all the time. You see who that actor is and their kind of persona that they've developed over their years with their movies. I like seeing actors act kind of usual, out of type in it. One example, Tom Cruise, fantastic villain and bad guy. You say maybe in real life, but I love the Mission Impossible movies. I think they are so much fun. But him as a bad guy in Collateral with Jamie Foxx, just the menace that he has, so good. I'd like to see Tom Cruise in more roles like that. Secondly, I watched a new Netflix movie that did not make my streaming recommendation because I hadn't really seen much about it. But I saw it was getting some good reviews and wanted to check it out. It's called It's What's Inside is the name of the movie. And Netflix original, opened there. And I went in not really knowing anything about it. Didn't even watch the trailer for it. And I was kind of blown away. This is one of the better direct to Netflix, like Netflix original movies that I have seen. It is a fantastic, it's not a horror movie. It's more of kind of like a psychological thriller in a way. And I don't want to say too much about it, but if you have Netflix, I highly recommend you go check it out. It's not like overly gory or anything like that. So if you can't do gore, you can't do torture, it's nothing like that. It is a very kind of like cerebral psychological thriller. Really recommend it. I also checked out a movie that I'd been seeing a lot of hype and good things about that is available to rent on digital right now or buy, is Strange Darling. And so that was another one. I didn't really know much going into it, except that I had heard that it was fantastic and people didn't know what they were getting into when they went into it and loved it. I'm not going to spoil it. I think it's good to go into it, not really knowing what to expect. So I'm going to keep that trend. The only thing I will say on it is it's a non-linear story. So it's told in 6 chapters and the numbering jumps back and forth. And I think it is done beautifully. It elevates the story. It adds to kind of the suspense and the level of where you're at there. Nonlinear storytelling can be hit or miss for me, but I thought this is an example of like the top tier way to do it. It was fantastic. Willa Fitzgerald gives a fantastic performance in it. So, and I'm rewatching The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix, which Mike Flanagan, I think, is one of the best writer directors out there right now, especially for kind of like the thriller, horror, kind of supernatural vibe. And that's one of his best shows. I talked about it briefly on here when I first watched it. Same with Midnight Mass, I think, is up there. Midnight Mass is one of my favorite shows of all time. How that story builds and how it culminates is absolutely fantastic. It starts out a little bit slow. So there's just kind of a looming dread that builds throughout it. But man, absolutely fantastic series. Mike Flanagan, fantastic. I just saw it announced today that he's going to be doing a limited series, 8-part limited series for Amazon, adapting Carrie, Stephen King's Carrie. He did Dr. Sleep, which was an adaptation of Stephen King's sequel to The Shining. And Stephen King notoriously hated the movie adaptation of The Shining. Stephen King absolutely loves Mike Flanagan's adaptation of Dr. Sleep and what he did with that movie. So that goes to tell you something there. Mike Flanagan killing it. He has his core cast who are usually in a lot of his movies. His wife, Kate Siegel, who is an absolutely fantastic actress, and she shines in every role she's in these series. Then Raul Coley is one of my favorites in there as well. Absolutely great in Fall of House of Usher. Fantastic in Midnight Mass. And great in Haunting of Hill House. I think Haunting of Bly Manor was one too. Bly Manor didn't hit quite as well for me. Hill House was the first one I haven't seen. I think it's the Midnight Club. That's kind of like a more young adult teen spin one. But Mike Flanagan killing it. And he's doing an adaptation of The Exorcist. And I think that's a mini series, not a movie. And so I'm excited to see what he does with that. He said it's not a remake of the original. He's kind of making it his own thing because he's like, you can't top that peak of what the original Exorcist was in horror. So excited to see it. Mike Flanagan doing good things. His exclusive deal with Netflix is over. Like I said, Carrie's on Amazon Prime. And I think that's good. He had a lot of times expressed kind of disappointment in Netflix, like refusing to let him do physical media releases for his projects like Midnight Mass and Haunting of Hill House, and them just sticking with the streaming. And we've seen over the years what Warner Brothers has done, like with streaming, with trying to save profits, just taking things off that were Max originals and movies to kind of be able to recoup some money, just completely wiping them from streaming. And things that never had a physical release, then it's just lost media at this point. And I think that is a dangerous thing and a concern with streaming, especially when you have actors and directors that pour years, months, so much of their time and their heart and their blood, sweat, and tears in these projects, and the rest of the cast and crew too. And then things can just get scrapped and erased. And I think that's a dangerous thing. And I'm not someone like, I contribute to the problem. I buy digital movies on everything now. I don't have Blu-rays lining my shelves like I used to, just because it's not sustainable. And I feel like I would get a lot less if I did that. But I do. There's part of me that misses back when I was in college, where almost every few weeks I'd like to go into Best Buy and just look at the sale, DVDs, Blu-rays, and pick up something new. I did keep I have the Alien anthology on Blu-ray, which Alien Romulus is another movie at the top of my list to watch, and I'm excited because heard good things about that, and so I'm glad that's finally out on digital. But I don't know. There's part of me that missed that when Best Buy did the steel books, getting those steel books and just the artwork on those. It was a lot of fun. But I digress. Let's get into some music talk. This past weekend, I saw Skillet and Seether live in concert with an opener, Royal Lynn, who's relatively new. I think she has a total of 8 singles out there right now. Really good. Gave me a little bit of, Royal Lynn gave me some kind of Flyleaf, Evanescence vibes. A little bit Flyleaf vibes because she did All Around Me by Flyleaf. But a lot of fun, a lot of potential. I could see her getting big and going places. A fantastic voice, good stage presence. I liked how the songs were built. It's like a country rock song that's fantastic too. A lot of fun. But the venue I saw this at was an outdoor amphitheater, but it is in the middle of a newer pop-up district outside of Omaha, one of our bigger cities. Not familiar with Nebraska city culture. It's at La Vista, which is kind of not suburb, but I can't think of the word. Whatever. A smaller part outside of Omaha. But right next to the venue, there is this big apartment building that's right almost even with it, which I don't know which one went in first. If I was in that apartment, I think I'd be kind of pissed if the concert venue went in afterwards. At the same time, you're getting free concerts multiple times a week. So it was interesting. I will say they have the stage setup was fantastic. I they had a good size pit area, concrete, and then they had grass that they had chairs set up. So a lot of outdoor venues have where it's just standing blankets. Some people can bring in folding chairs in that area on the grass, but they have chairs set up, which is good. It makes it nice. But these were the flimsiest, most uncomfortable, small chairs ever. So not very comfortable. The nice thing, they weren't connected. You could slide them over if you got the person on the end to cooperate and have a little extra room there. But it was a really fun venue to see the concert in. I saw Seether earlier this year with Stained, and they sound fantastic live. And I think the difference for me, a Skillet I've seen 3 or 4 times before, going back to high school days. We've talked about it on here before. Brad and I, friend of the pod, been on multiple times, brother, grew up homeschooled, fairly religious. So Skillet was kind of towing the edge for us. They were Christian rock. They weren't overly preachy in a lot of their lyrics. It's not the traditional worship lyrics or Christian music that you'd hear before, right? It's a little bit harder rock, and they put on a fantastic show. One of the first rock shows that I went to, first mosh pit I was a part of, was that Skillet show back in high school. I'm going with friends, and it's been one of the consistent, best shows I've been to. Did VIP meet and greet with them. It was fun stuff. But I think over time, I've kind of fallen away from listening to their music. They've gotten a lot more, in my opinion, they've lost some of what made them so original. The album that I was first introduced to them, their Comatose album, which came out in 2006. So we're coming up on the 20-year anniversary of that. That one, they have a beautiful mix of just violin and cello. Don't quote me on it. I did not research what the large bass string instrument was during it. That's just beautiful and weaves in and brings the songs together. And I thought it was really unique and original. Now I feel like they've gotten more into a lot just more traditional rock. And I love John Cooper's voice. Don't get me wrong. But now we're getting a lot of stage. When he performed this time, I felt like the staging and the effects of the show, maybe the most advanced and best I've seen, besides they didn't have fire. And I always enjoyed when they have fire. Every other show that I've seen them at, Fire. Great. Love Fire. But now the vocals, a lot more screaming, play a lot more of their newer stuff, which is, I can't imagine if you are a band that has seen so much success for so many years, trying to balance and build a set list for your show has to be so hard to do. You're like, we have a catalog of 8 albums out there. How do we make sure that we're kind of covering our past progression, our fans that have been with us for the 20-year journey, and the new ones who have just started listening to us? Especially, you have some of those bands that their music in the genre that they are has just morphed and changed so much over the years. So this was, in my opinion, the weakest set list that they've put out at that I've been to. I think I've been to 4 shows of theirs total. But part of that's because they did play a good chunk of newer ones that I haven't listened to those albums. So that's on me. But this show, because it was kind of like a co-headlining tour. Seether and Skillet both had 11 song sets. Skillet might have had a 12th one that they snuck in there. But not crazy long sets like I've been to one where the headliner has 18 songs. This wasn't that. They're sharing the stage, not a ton of openers. They just had the one opener. And it really showed the two sides of it. I feel like when you go to live music for me, I prefer the smaller venues, the more intimate venues. Like this, it was an outdoor venue, but it was small to medium size, I would say. Like even clearing the back, you're still within 100 yards of the stage. And it's not like multiple levels like the arena ones. Arena tours can be really neat, especially if you have a band, an artist who has been doing it for a while. They have the effects, they have the staging, they know what they're doing, they know how to work the crowd. It still can be electric seeing them in the arena. But in my opinion, if you're clear up in the nosebleeds for an arena, it just doesn't hit the same for me. My favorite shows I've ever been to have been in small, intimate venues, either seeing bands before they've really taken it off, or ones now that are kind of on, not the backswing, that's a bad way to say it, but just aren't at the peak of their popularity. I talked about it a while back when I saw Red Jumpsuit Apparatus at a smaller venue here in town. They played almost the entirety of their Don't You Fake It album, which is the album with all the songs people know and love. It's what made me fall in love with the band and love it. And they knew what people wanted to hear. They knew the hits, and just being in that intimate venue with maybe a couple hundred people max, and just being on the floor in the pit, close to the band, their energy while still keeping it clean and simple. There weren't a bunch of special effects, video boards, anything like that. They just put on a damn good show and played good music, and just everyone was loving it. People are singing. There's different people have different opinions at live concerts. They're like, I came to hear the band sing, not the audience. And I can get that to an effect too. But those performers on stage, you have to imagine how that feels, knowing that something you created and put out there in the world has impacted and affected people so much, and they connect to it that they just want to sing your own song back to you. And to me, I feel like that would have to be an awesome feeling as a performer. And so I think that, going back to what I was talking about with this concert, Seether and Skillet kind of showcase two different sides of long live concerts and approach to it. Seether, very simple staging set. They have the drummer on a little bit of risers, band member standing there, weren't super mobile during it. They're moving around some, working the crowd a bit, but they just have their banner in the background. No video boards, nothing like that. Simple, clean. It was about the music. It was about playing their songs, singing their heart out, like feeding off that energy from the crowd. And I loved it. They sound fantastic. Seether wasn't one that I really listened to that much growing up. Like I knew Fake It and Remedy because those were the ones that were playing on the radio all the time when I was back in high school. And so those ones I knew, but man, some of these songs live, like Dangerous and Broken, were ones that I didn't really know, hadn't really listened to much before. And the last show I saw them in May was a big arena show. And I don't know, I just appreciated everything so much more in the smaller venue. It seemed more intimate, even though there were still probably a couple thousand people there. But I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And then Skillet has just an insane set and staging. They've got video boards that are displaying things constantly. They've got an S with a video board behind it on the drum stand. They've got platforms that raise and lower, that they've got the guitarist, the bass, well, the guitarist on, and then the cello player came out. There's no violinist this time, and I don't know if he has parted ways, if he was sick, what was going on with that, but some of the songs that had the orchestrations, I felt like were missing that. It didn't hit quite as hard. It didn't seem quite as neat, but they're a lot more, like Seether didn't do any like fan like interaction. How are you guys doing? Great to be in Omaha. Just chatting in between. They played their songs. They didn't even talk to the crowd until right before the last song, just kind of introducing and thanking everyone. And they did something I thought was awesome that I haven't seen before. They had their crew that comes out and like tunes the instruments come and play the last song. And I thought that was awesome. And then it just gave the main band members a chance to just vibe, just feel the music and feed off the crowd. The crew members were crushing it. You got a guitar solo going on from it, who are tuning it. And those are guys that work behind the scenes usually, and they don't get much love, but man, they work hard. They're on the tour week in, week out with the band. And it was really cool to kind of showcase them and that talent. And I thought that was really awesome. But then like Skillet, you got smoke, like I said, no fire this time, but you had all the video boards. You have all those bells and whistles things going on. At one point, John Cooper has hooks up like smoke machines to his arms and he's shooting them back like he's OG Iron Man coming out of the cave with flamethrowers, just in the crowd, just wild stuff, getting everyone going. Lots of fan interaction between songs in there. And I don't know, I feel like is a lot more, it's putting on a show, right? You are entertaining the crowd. You are putting on this massive production, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like that's what a lot of these massive arena tours are too. Like Taylor Swift, talented, hustling, grinding it. Her shows, you hear people describe it like it's an experience. It's not just like listening to the music. It is, they put on a whole show, a whole production. You are going on an experience of a lifetime there, the show. And I feel like that's how Skillet shows are. The energy is insane, off the charts, crazy. And I feel like I liked seeing that kind of dichotomy and that dual sides of live performances at the same show. That's something you don't get very often. A lot of times you have bands that are going to have similar vibes touring together. And so that was something I really appreciated about this show. I do think it was still a fantastic show that Skillet put on. It was probably my least favorite Skillet performance that I've seen. Set list wasn't as strong for me. My favorite show that I saw them at was right before their Awake album came out. They had some of their probably more, kind of sent them a little more into the mainstream because they were featured in before like NFL, UFC with Monster was their big song. It kind of took off on rock radio too. But before that album with Awake and Alive, Monster and everything came out, it was right before that came out. So they played Monster. They played Hero, the other one from that, and I think Awake and Alive. But then the majority of it was songs from their Comatose album, which to me is one of the best albums. I think Brad and I talked about it in general when we were talking about like our approved songs when we did that draft a couple months ago. That's just one of the albums as a whole. It nails it, and it is a damn near perfect album. You open with Rebirthing. You have Comatose in there. You have Yours to Hold. You have The Last Night, Whispers in the Dark, Falling Inside the Black. It is just a fantastic album that if you haven't listened to, do yourself a favor, go do it. It is one of the best like rock albums of all time, in my opinion. So I think you should go check that out if you haven't, if you're not a big Skillet fan. But this, I've gotten kind of a little bit jaded on concerts recently, I feel like, because a lot of what I've gone to lately has been arena shows. A lot of the bands that I listen to are either not touring anywhere close, or they're support opening acts for bigger ones that are playing in the arena. And while I loved the Fall Out Boy concert when I went to that a few months ago, it was absolutely fantastic. The nostalgia and their sets were insane. Fantastic tour. But I don't know. I miss back in like my high school, younger college days, seeing kind of like the pop punk bands and like small bars and venues like that have a stage, and like seeing All Time Low in a small venue. The energy was off the charts. Their energy on stage, so good. The interaction with the fans, fantastic. Everyone just vibing, singing along. Same with like Newfound Glory. Like some of my favorite shows I've been to have been those smaller venues, pop punk, just so much fun. Like Ron Pope is one of my favorite artists, singer songwriter, a little bit more like folk country now. And I love the show that I went to with him is I was 20. And so as soon as the show was over, I had to get out. But one of my buddies went in and got a signed album for me because who I went with was over 21. But because of that bar, you had to leave once the show was up if you weren't 21. But it was just like a small, intimate venue, and Rompa playing a Drop in the Ocean in there, and Fireflies, so fucking good. And I don't know, just those moments where the music makes you feel something is what I really value. And like I said, I've talked about it on here, but what kind of, I feel like, it's a cliche saying, but like when words fail, music speaks. I feel like music can just resonate on another level than words by themselves can. For me, music and musical theater, like that's what kind of inspired this podcast, talking to Rayleigh and I, and why I connect to it so much. It just evokes a whole other level of emotion from me, and I feel like just kind of unlocks something, helps you connect, can help things resonate more. Just these lyrics, these words told in the story, and when you're seeing musical theater and musicals play out, and even over the course of a song, just hearing the songwriter's emotion and just, I don't know, pouring everything out, singing with a beautiful melody, music behind it. Like, there's a reason why churches, when they're connecting, they have the pastor is at the end of his speech, we're going into his prayer, where you start having the band play behind them. Just like having a constant kind of soundtrack playing in the background just would make everything so much more epic. But musicals, something about it where you are seeing the story, the plight of these characters, what they're going through, played out, you're seeing it acted out, and then you're seeing them put it to music and just be able to communicate so beautifully. I don't know. I feel like there's nothing like it. There's nothing like live music and experiencing those emotions with a whole crowd too. And when you have a real talented performer, whether it's music or musical on stage, just that are able to bring in that audience and make you feel those emotions with them, make you feel that connection, is just, there's nothing like it in the world. And I feel like there's musicals or something that are obviously near and dear to me, but I feel like they're definitely not everyone's cup of tea. And it kind of blows my mind because I think just because I like it so much, but part of me thinks that people who think that way have not gone into certain musicals with open minds, or they connect musicals to like Oklahoma, things like that. Epic in their own right, don't get me wrong, but the very old school style of musical we've talked about on here, that's not what I resonate with. That's not what I connect with. The more modern musical storytelling is like Rent, Tick Tick Boom, even to a lesser extent, talked about it, like Dear Evan Hansen, like flawed as it is, but like The Greatest Showman, I think this modern age of musicals, it is completely different than what came before it, yes, but it is just able to connect with audiences in a different way. We're telling stories that are speaking to and they were before too. Don't get me wrong, but I'm focusing on now and what connects to me. We're focusing on stories like Dear Evan Hansen, like that mental health, that loss, that pain, that sadly a lot of kids, teen youths, and people in general deal with these days. And does it tell it perfectly? No. But did like You Will Be Found in Dear Evan Hansen, I feel like part of why it gained so much popularity is kind of like resonates to what it's saying in the musical. Like relating mental health is something that is still a little bit taboo, or a little bit misunderstood if it's not something that you deal with or you go through. And as much as we try to put ourselves in other people's shoes for different plights, you can never fully do it unless you're actually experiencing those emotions yourself, right? Those feelings and everything. But I don't know. I feel like when you have a song that is able to bring to life feelings that other people have and may not be able to communicate, I feel like that's something special. And I feel like these live performances and these national tours and even like local theater being able to do this and make things more accessible to people is awesome. That's why when I talked about here about like Broadway HD, the streaming platform sucks. It's bad. It's not user friendly. They don't have an app. It's available as an add-on on Amazon, so I would say that's the way to go with it. But I love that we're getting more filmed Broadway stage versions. So I can't completely shit on it because I think what they're doing is awesome. I think that they should film more Broadway, make it more accessible to people, to give people like a jumping in point. However, I don't think shows like that, nothing can top seeing it live. A good example for me is Jesus Christ Superstar. I'd listened to the soundtrack. I'd watched the old movies. None of it really connected. None of it really jived with me. Seeing it live, seeing these performances, seeing the energy from the performers. It was one of my favorite shows that I saw on the national tour last year. It was so good. And I don't know. I feel like I don't want live theater, like even a movie experience. I've talked about that. Theater audiences, I think, have gotten worse, and because people take for granted being able to watch it at home. But man, there's something about seeing something with a crowd, watching something, experiencing it with others, feeling the same emotions or different categories of emotions than you, and just these people, these performers on screen, on stage, pouring out their emotions. There's something different about being able to feel their energy, and just resonate with you in live art, live music, concerts, theater, etc. So support live art, go out, go to a local tour, support your local theater. There's local productions doing musicals all the time. We've got one that's doing Rocky Horror here. We have one that did Tick Tick Boom a while back. Go support these things around you. Live music, live theater, gotta keep it going, keep it strong. And that's what this episode was about. So hopefully you enjoyed a little bit different vibe to the episode this week. But Brad will probably be joining for a draft in the next few weeks. We will still do Across the Universe, probably Rocky Horror Picture Show if we can. I did promise that coming up, but something about me wants to keep it like a Halloween release. So if we can't do it this year, I might just have to wait till next year. So stay tuned. Also, it's October 23rd when this episode's coming out. Election is in a couple weeks. Don't like to get political or anything on here, but do your research, go out and vote, be an educated voter. Don't just take the political ads that we're all getting thrown at us for you. And then I don't know about you, but I'm ready for the political ads to stop so I can go back to enjoying my football games and live TV. Make sure you're doing your duty, do your research, vote, watch the pod, rate the pod, share the pod, follow the pod, subscribe to the pod, do all that fun stuff to help the podcast grow. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Bring your friends along for the ride. Subscribe with your 3 different accounts that you have. All sorts of fun stuff. Appreciate you all. Thanks for tuning in. We'll get other voices besides mine in here shortly. Love you. Listen. And don't forget to go down once more. Later.